So you're handling sharing it to Audio Alchemy and to mine.
I'm sharing it to
Yours to mine. Okay.
to Jeremy. All right, we're good there. We're good there. We're gonna start recording on a mixer in 5, 4, 3.
Welcome to the SaveOne podcast, where we share testimonials of overcoming inner turmoil and tackle the tough topic of common mental health struggles. Our goal is to create a community of believers who support each other through camaraderie, understanding, and love by revealing the secrets we so frequently try to hide from others. You are never alone. Hey everybody, welcome back. We've taken a few weeks off, and I'll just shortly say that, I had kind of gotten to a point where I had a lot going on, and I really needed a break for a few weeks to kind of collect myself, reflect on some stuff, and make some decisions. So that's why we haven't had a podcast the past few weeks, but I'm extremely excited for today. We have Miss Jacquie Taylor on, and so we're going to be talking about dating. This is going to be the first part of 3 episodes where we cover dating, marriage, and then marriage problems and divorce. And the reason I wanted to do this is, as we've started SaveOne, it seems to be a lot of people that are fall in this same boat that I'm in, with dating post-divorce, mid-30s, or also seems like, and this is just an assumption that I bet Miss Jacquie can correct or not, is it seems like a lot of people nowadays are getting married later in life, later in their 20s, early 30s. And so it just seems like a lot of people are in the dating world right now. And so I'm real interested to tackle that. I reached out yesterday to all my followers. I did get some good feedback, some questions that we'll tackle. But other than those few questions, I don't really have any direction. So Miss Jacquie, welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Real quick, can you just give me a little bit background on you so that everybody knows your background, and then we'll dive into this?
Sure. So I am a licensed professional counselor, but a lot of what I know and do is from personal experience more than what my degree taught me. My husband is a little over 10 years, about 10 and a half years in recovery from alcoholism, and I'm about 10 and a half years in recovery from what we call codependency or love addiction. So we both kind of had our own journeys of healing, and it was a long 2-year journey. But ultimately what we found at the root of it is both of us had trauma, which is a whole other discussion. What is trauma? But after our own journey, I kind of realized I want to help people do this. I want to help people heal the way the way we were helped. So I went back to school and got trained formally as a therapist and got licensed. And now a lot of what I do, though, is really just coming from personal experience.
Okay. Well, honestly, in my opinion, that's, there's a lot of people hold degrees and hold different things, and life experience, there's nothing that does better than that as far as relating to people. I know me personally, stuff I've gone through, I would much rather talk to somebody who's lived it and walked it than I would anybody who has a degree in it.
Right. There's so much safety and trust when someone says "me too."
Yes.
Those are 2 very powerful words. I get it. I've been there, and it's especially like my specialty really is codependency. That's really what I do. And I do trauma therapy as well, but what I really love is codependency coaching and education.
Okay.
My husband is actually just finished a master's degree in drug and alcohol counseling, but that's his side of the street. That's what he does well. That's what he can say, "Me too, I get it." And when he's sitting with someone who is struggling with recovery, he can say, "I get it. I know what that's like. I know what you're feeling." And boom, there's instant trust. Whereas with me, if I'm working with someone who's struggling with recovery and recovery from substance abuse, it takes me a lot longer to earn that trust because they don't really feel safe that I'm not going to judge them or shame them or, I don't really get them.
Yeah.
So it's those two little words, I get it. I've been there. Me too. And I've sat across from people that have shared things, and I've said, I get it. Me too. I've been there. That happened to me, or I did that. And tears just start to flow.
Mm-hmm.
And those are what I've just told them. And I'm not really sharing. I don't overshare to the, it's not my therapy, but I'm going to share enough to make sure that it's safe.
Yeah.
What you're telling me is safe, because I've been there too, so I won't judge you. That's our biggest fear, is being judged. So it's easier for me to work with people that have experiencing what I've experienced.
Yeah, and it's interesting you say that, because obviously I have no background, no degree in any type of therapy, counseling, anything. But I started SaveOne podcast and am working on starting a nonprofit that'll fund being able to send people to therapy and to rehabs. And the whole reason I did that is because I have a lifelong journey of failures. And I wanted to take all the things that I've been through and be able to help somebody. And so that's been the cool part about what I do with SaveOne. I've had a large array of people on the show that come from all different backgrounds. But that's the key, is I try to bring people on that can say that right there. I get it. I relate to that. Stuff like that. So,
yeah.
Well, with that, let's jump into talking about dating. So, obviously most of my followers know this is the world that I'm in now. So I'm post-divorce with a 6-year-old son and a 2-year-old daughter, officially divorced. And so I'm starting to get back in the dating world. A lot of my followers are in the dating world. So for me, going through divorce, kind of like you with the codependency thing and having that passion, like right now, probably divorce and then PTSD type traumas from law enforcement and fire career, kind of my two really big spots that I care about. And so I wanted to put something together that could help educate, could help answer some questions to people who are also in this same spot I am now. So I'm 36. It seems like there's a lot of people in that mid-30s, early 40s, post-divorce, young children, or like I said, they're, later in their adulthood, in their their later 20s, haven't been married yet, and they're in the dating world. And so I just wanted to kind of start off, have no real direction. I do have a few questions. We can kind of start going there. One of the first ones I had was talk a little bit about the difference in dating before a marriage versus post-divorce. So, because that's two different, I know I have noticed and have learned that there is a big difference in what it was like dating back in my early 20s to what it's like dating now. Like, it is night and day, and it is a whole new world.
Like,
so
culturally it's different, or
that,
for you it's different?
I think culturally and for me. So I mean, the constraints of having the children being one thing. All the lessons I learned through my first marriage now, and just kind of this, the best way I can put it is just kind of this no bullshit approach to it. Like, back in my early 20s, I can remember, you would talk to somebody for months and you would date, and before it got serious and all that. I now feel like within a few days or like a week, like I know, like this is either something I want to pursue or not, like one way or the other. And I don't know if that comes from just don't necessarily have the time now to drag things out, or if it's because of just all the lessons.
You know yourself better.
I know myself
what
better.
You're looking for, not looking for.
Yeah.
A little better.
And so, like, I look at it now, I'm like, in a way, I like it a lot better, because I do. I mean, I know who I am, I know what I bring, and then I know what I want. And it usually doesn't take, I find now in the dating world, you'll have more serious conversations early on, like within the first few days of meeting somebody, versus I can remember dating in my 20s, you know, things you talk about after 6 months or so. Now you're having that conversation in week 1 because it's just kind of like you're both on the same page. Like, is this going to work or not? Like, this is what I need. If you don't, if we don't see eye to eye, we're done, kind of thing. Is that something you see a lot, or I mean, is that, what are your thoughts on it?
Is it something I see the difference from the past and the present?
Yeah.
Like culturally, what?
Yeah.
Well, it's hard. It's hard to say because I mean I wasn't a therapist then and didn't.
Yeah.
I have my own journey, but I mean I can talk from my personal experience what dating was like when I was single.
Yeah.
But and I've never been divorced. I was almost divorced. I was ready for that to happen if it needed to happen. Unfortunately, it didn't need to. But there are definitely the benefit of dating after divorce would be what you just described. Hopefully, you know yourself better and you've learned from the failed marriage what was my part in it. Hopefully, you know, before your first, that's why, you know, we jump into marriage so quickly. That's a whole other discussion about entering the vulnerability pool slowly, and how codependency can expedite that process.
Okay.
A premature marriage before you've really figured out if this is what you want or not. But there's definitely a benefit to getting married again after a marriage if you have taken the time to grow from it, to one, heal from it, and to two, grow from it. Because there's absolutely going to be some grief and some wounding and some healing that needs to happen after a marriage. And some people say, you know, I've got to have 3 rebounds before I actually start getting serious. You know, that's an individual question. You know, how we all heal is going to be as unique as the individual. But it is important to heal from the marriage before jumping into another one. I think it's fine to start dating right after. Fine, have your rebounds. You know, if it helps you move on or, you know, cope or, you know, but don't jump into another marriage before you've figured out why the first one failed and what your part in it is and why the first one failed, not just what the other person did wrong.
That's the perfect segue into probably the most popular thing I had sent to me, and as well as for me personally that I thought about is, one, you know, it's funny when you get divorced, everybody and their mama has advice for you. People who have never been divorced, people who have had 5 marriages, and people who have had 1 marriage for 50 years, they all have advice for you on how you should do your life now after a divorce. And honestly, that is very annoying to me. I'm very against that. If you haven't been through it, be quiet, kind of thing, unless you have experience with people. And so I say that because one of the things I found funny right after my divorce is so many people saying, you know, you need to be single for 6 months. You know, you need to be single for a year.
Single
You
meaning not
need
married or not dating
not
at
dating.
all? Or
Yeah,
not
you
dating
need
at
to
all?
spend the next year by yourself. No dating, no talking to anybody. Get to know yourself. Or you know, everybody has these timelines that they put on stuff. Or like you said, I've also heard that advice. Man, you need to have so many rebounds before you get serious with somebody. You know, you need to do this. You need to do that. And so my view on it, and I want to get yours, is it's not a blanket thing that you can put on. I know people who have started dating before their divorce was finalized. You know, because in Mississippi it is a 60-day wait process before the judge signs and all that stuff. So understandably, you meet somebody, you start dating, no big deal. I don't think anything's wrong with that. You know, and I know people who have met one person after their divorce. They ended up later marrying that person. They've been happily married for years, all that. I know people who have dated 20 people after they got divorced. You know, that's a whole different topic. It's not the same for everybody. And I get tired of people feeling like they have to go by this approach that their friends or their family is telling them, because nobody knows how you feel or what you're going through except you. And one of the most common things that I know from my own experience, and then I hear a lot of people have told me, is what people don't understand is a lot of times, yeah, the divorce date, you might have been essentially single and separated in emotionally, physically, everything for years. So it's not necessarily like you're, not many marriages are completely happy and then just boom, one day they end. There's already kind of been this lead up to that divorce that a lot of people, unless you've gone through it, don't understand. It's almost like a very prolonged breakup.
Mm-hmm.
And so for me, I can see how some people come out of that and they're immediately ready for the dating world.
Right.
So
Everybody's divorce experience is the same. It's different. I mean, there's no two divorce experiences that are the same exactly. But you're right. The end of your marriage, or that when the marriage starts to turn south, there's a lot of different dynamics and a lot of different reasons and a lot of different ways we responded, and there's no two divorces that are the same, and there's going to be no two healings that are the same, and no two journeys back from divorce that are going to be the same. But I do think that it's very important to surround yourself with safe people that you trust, who can help you see what you might not be seeing.
Yeah.
So that you're not repeating patterns. And I see that a lot with with clients who are on their third or fourth marriage, and we talk about each one of them, and there's patterns. There were patterns, but they didn't learn from them in between, and they're just repeating history over and over and over. So it's really important, I think, after a divorce to learn from the divorce and learn from your marriage, and where were the red flags that I ignored. Before we even got married, I have clients now that they're like, I feel ignored. They don't honor the boundaries around our marriage. I'm like, oh, so when did all that start? I was like that before we got married. I'm like, okay. So there were the warning signs, but you didn't have those safe people that you trusted to help you see those and help you decide if this was a non-negotiable for you. So it's really important to have safe people to help you see what our dating goggles don't let us see, especially if you're dating somebody that you're physically attracted to. So it's really important to have the clarity of people that you trust to be honest with you and encourage you, not control you or make decisions for you, but to say, hey, man, I love you. This is what I'm seeing. Yeah. From a place of love. It's your choice, but this is what I'm seeing. And it also takes the ability to know yourself, and how comfortable are you really being vulnerable in this relationship?
Yeah.
Are you being too vulnerable? Are you not being vulnerable enough? Where's the balance and boundaries, and what are your non-negotiables? What are you looking for? What is your non-negotiable? I have to have this. And what is your non-negotiable? If I'm not, this is what I can't live without. This is what I can't live with. So what can I live without? What can I not live without, and what can I not live with?
Yeah.
I cannot live with verbal abuse. I will not. As soon as you start calling me names, I'm out. Game over. No second chances. That's my limit of what I cannot live with. But I also cannot live without compliments and affection. I can't, so what is it that you're needing and wanting that I got to have this in a marriage, because I didn't have it in my previous relationships, and it was a problem for me. And I tried to ignore it, decided I couldn't. Now I'm going to expect that, and I'm going to communicate that I really need this. This is important to me. And I might give you some feedback and let you know this is my love language. This is what I really need. And I'm going to step back and wait and see if you're willing to sacrifice your comfort in order to meet that need for me. But I'm also going to be very honest about, what? Drinking can't be a part of my life. I'm in recovery, and I'd really love it if you would honor that boundary that I need in order to protect my sobriety. And you step back and you decide if they say yes, I can honor that, and they don't, that's a problem. If they say I can't honor that, I want to be able to drink, then you have to decide, is this a non-negotiable for you or not? For some it would be, for some it wouldn't be. You have to know yourself. If you enter a relationship not knowing yourself, then you're going to let somebody else define it for you. You're going to let somebody else define what your limits are and what your needs are. And it could be years before you realize, you know what, that's not working for me. Well, you've changed the rules. You waited 10 years into this marriage to now decide who you are, and you've changed the rules on me. And that's fair. I mean, I have a couple right now who he's in sobriety, and he's changed his life of partying, but that's who they were when they got married, and she's still there, and he's gotten into sobriety, and he's changing his people, places, and things, which is what you do in sobriety, and she wants no part of that. Well, you changed the rules. You didn't know who you were before you got married.
Yeah. That's a great point. And I know for me, and so I had a few things as you're talking through that. You know, I had a question from somebody that came in last night that said, how do you know when you're ready to date? And I think you just answered that. I think the first step of it, and it could be the day the judge signs the papers, or it could take you 3 months, 6 months, a year. There's no time limit for anybody. I want to be, if you agree, I want to be very clear about that. Screw time limits. Don't listen to people that tell you this many months, this many years. It's all individually based, but the key to it sounds like, is knowing yourself, learning from the mistakes, taking ownership of your part of it. And I will speak for myself. You know, me and my ex-wife, we both made mistakes. We both have fault in our marriage falling apart. It's unfortunate, but now I look forward to a happy life with something else by taking all the lessons that I learned and taking the ownership and working on the things that I did wrong. And I hope that for her too. And I think that's step one, is examining yourself, really knowing yourself at this stage of your life. Because like you said, I'm not who I was 10 years ago, by no means. And I'm not even who I was 2 years ago. And so learning who you are and evaluating if you have been in a previous marriage, or even if you've just been in previous long-term dating relationships, breaking the cycle. And you say that, I know some people who are on their third marriage, or I've seen people who, you know, have dated, and it's like, you're dating the same person every time.
Right.
Like, they look a little different, but you're dating the same person, or you're getting married to the same person, and that didn't work out before. And so, you know, what is different? Like, I know right now there's some things kind of on my, like you said, that list. I know that list now. I know what I am capable of bringing, and I know what I'm looking for. There's some things on that list that are very different than my ex-wife. Because if I made my list off of obviously that's not a smart move. And so I just want to say that sounds like step one. Know yourself and know what it is you want and need, and then hold that line.
Right. Hold the line's important. Are you willing to walk away when you realize this is a non-negotiable for me?
Yeah.
And that's when we start really seeing codependency.
Okay.
Codependency is the inability to walk away when someone or something is hurting you or not meeting your needs.
Okay.
This thing or person is bad for me, or it's doesn't make me happy, or it's hurting me, but I can't distance from it. I can't walk away from it. So that's a codependency issue, and usually at the root of codependency is shame and love starvation. And that's when we really need to go back to the childhood and look at, okay, what need didn't get filled for you? You didn't develop a healthy sense of self, a healthy sense of a healthy self-love and self-trust.
Okay.
And you're looking for someone else to fill that for you. And so in codependent relationships, we either show up in the victim role or the rescuer role.
Okay.
You know, and there, we could unpack that even more. But the inability to recognize when this is an unhealthy or you know, it's not the right relationship for me, but I can't end it. That's when we have to look at what's going on inside. Because a healthy, secure person knows what they want, they know what they don't want, They have the ability to be vulnerable, and they, but not too vulnerable too soon, not a desperate kind of vulnerable. So there's this zone of healthy vulnerability. And we always talk about the emotional, the emotional tolerance, I'm too overstimulated versus understimulated. Well, it's the same thing as vulnerability. So we have to need in relationship. It is not, you cannot have a healthy relationship if both people don't need one another. It's healthy to have needs in a relationship, but it's also healthy to walk away from it when your needs are not met.
Yeah.
Or when you're being hurt. So if I need so much that I can't walk away, that's a problem. But if I don't need at all, and I'm just here to make sure that you feel loved and that you need me, now I'm really getting my needs met.
Okay.
By you needing me. So there's codependency is almost always shows up in relationship problems, almost always, and it really falls back on you've somehow either lost or never formed your own reality, your own truth. What I call your truth, what you want, what you don't want, and the ability to be vulnerable.
So, out of curiosity, because I think this is a good topic to kind of stay on for a moment, is codependency usually seen from childhood on, or can it be triggered as something new, like post-divorce because of the trauma from a divorce? Or is it mostly something you can see a pattern?
No, there's usually a pattern.
Okay.
A healthy, secure person trusts themselves, trusts their judgment. They have healthy expectations, healthy communication, healthy limits, and healthy distance when it's necessary.
Okay.
An insecure person doesn't trust themselves enough to walk away.
Okay.
And I don't love myself enough to ask for what I want. And I need you to fill that void for me. I need you to love me so I can be okay. I need you, therefore I love you. So love is built on a need, on needing. So healthy love is, I love you, so I'm choosing to give my needs to you.
Yeah.
Versus, I need you to love me, or I need you, therefore I love you. Because I need you to love me, so I love you.
More of a transactional.
Yeah, I'm going to earn your, I'm going to sacrifice my sense of self. I'm going to sacrifice my limits, my needs, my expectations, my wants, my feelings. I'm going to sacrifice all that just so that you're happy and you don't leave me.
Okay.
That's not a healthy love. Love is built on trust plus commitment. But what is trust? And what is commitment?
Yeah.
To have a healthy, genuine, deep, healthy love, trust has to be developed, and commitment has to be proven over time. If your love is built on and I need you, that's codependency. It's not healthy.
Yeah, I'm sitting here thinking, personally, I'm thinking about other people I know, stuff like that. And yeah, it especially strikes me when you say, like, if you're in a healthy relationship and it's based on trust, then you're trusting that person enough to be vulnerable.
Yeah.
And to let them see your needs, even though they very well could run away from you when they see them,
Right.
kind of thing.
Right. So we want to do that slowly. We want to enter the vulnerability pool. We're talking about dating. We want to enter that vulnerability pool slowly. And I use the pool as an analogy of like a swimming pool with the deep end and diving board. And
Okay.
so when you first meet me, we're sitting on the deck of the pool. Maybe I just show up at the party.
Yeah.
And we're not. I haven't even changed my bathing suit yet. Maybe you're still in your street clothes, and hey, we just start talking to you. I share my name, where you're from, what you do, family, maybe if you have any kids, small talk, chit chat, superficial stuff.
Mm-hmm.
A deep relationship can't stay there. If you want to have a deeper relationship, you got to take the risk and take your shoes off and sit on the steps and at least put your feet in and talk for a minute about something more deep, more, more meaningful. And maybe you're going to share what your value systems are, what you really believe in. And maybe you're going to share a little bit about, your expectations of where we're going. I'd love to be married again one day. You know what? Not me ever. Okay. Back out of the pool.
Okay. That's
Back
a
out.
great point.
If you have just been very clear to me that you just want a casual relationship, but my truth, if I'm not lying to myself, is that I'm looking for someone to marry again.
Yep.
I'm getting out of the pool. I'm backing out. So maybe you tell me when we're sitting on the pool that, yeah, you know what, I've had, this happened in my past relationship, and, and this was my part in it, and I'm never going to make that mistake again. Just want you to know. Or this happened to me, and this is something I'm just so you know, I can't live with that. Never going to tolerate that again, just so you know. So I'm getting to know a little bit about your past and your history and what has hurt you in the past and what your limits are and what your values are and what your expectations are. You're telling me these things, and I'm telling you these things about myself. And then I get to decide if you think might be compatible or not. Okay, yeah. And maybe I do this for, 3 or 4 dates.
Yeah.
You know what? Let's try this. And we're gonna put our suits on, and we're gonna slip into the shallow end of the pool, and we're gonna stay there for a while. And we're gonna do this thing called dating.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna see if what you told me on the steps is backed up by what you do, by how you act in the shallow end of the pool. And you're gonna do the same for me. You're gonna be evaluating whether or not my words and my actions match up. And if they don't, if you told me this, I'm going to confront that. You know what? You told me that this.
Yeah.
But that's not what I'm seeing. So I just want to talk about that and see what you say and see if it's something we can adjust. And if not, if it's a pattern, I'm like, you know what? This has happened 2 or 3 times now. Your actions and your words don't match up, and I'm seeing that in my safe people that are watching my relationship that I trust are pointing it out to me, and they're seeing this, and I have to take the scales off my eyes and look and see, and stop lying to myself. You know what? This isn't going to work for me, and I'm going to get out of the pool. I'm just going to get out of the pool, and I'm going to go mingle some more on the deck.
Yeah.
But what happens is we are so love-starved and so afraid of being alone because we don't know who we are. We're not okay by ourselves. I need somebody to complete me. Because I can't complete myself. I don't know how else to get my needs met. So we're so starved for love that we see each other. Oh, you're really cute. You're really rich. You're hot. You have whatever our culture, our value system is. Look at the big house and the nice cars. Oh, you got this great job. Oh man, I'd love to have this trophy wife on my arm. Right?
Yeah.
Whatever it is that our culture values that is not love. We decide, oh, I want to be with this person forever. And then we jump off the diving board into the deep end of the pool into this thing called marriage. We have no idea if this person is really trustworthy or not. We have no idea if this person really values commitment and sacrifice or is willing to change and adapt and adjust and forgive or own their. We have no idea, really, how safe this relationship is. We just think we're in love. Because we don't know what love is.
I love the analogy of the pool. I've never heard anybody say that, and it's so true. And I'm sitting here thinking about different people that I may have gone on a few dates with, and how long it lasted, and where that point was that, using your analogy, now I got out of the pool, and that is so true. And kind of like what we were talking about in the beginning, I feel like if you are in the stage I'm in, post-divorce, kids, don't have a lot of time on your hands to, just go out and date a whole bunch and all that. Those conversations come pretty quick. It's pretty quick with me, at least I'll say. I'm gonna know really quick what your values are, what your background is, some core things without prying too deep to know whether or not this can go anywhere. And like you said, I've had a few of the things like you mentioned where it's like, I want to be married again. I have 2 little kids. I want a family. That's been my dream forever. I want a family. And I've gone on a date before, and yeah, I don't think I'll ever get married again. And I'm like, okay,
Told you everything you need to know. Make
awesome.
the
Like,
best
I
choice for you.
completely
Yeah.
understand. Like, you're in a different place, your kids are grown.
And
And
that's fine. Just be
exactly.
honest. And that's the problem is we're not honest because our codependent culture wants to make sure everybody else is happy. And I tell you what
Yes.
I think you want to hear.
Yeah.
And it may not be true, but I don't want to upset you or disappoint you. And we're so over responsible for other people's feelings, even people that we barely know,
Yeah.
that we aren't honest with people. But sometimes we're just not even honest with ourselves.
Yeah.
I'm just self-deception is a real thing.
Very much.
Because if I'm honest with myself, then that I might have to face the reality that this relationship needs to end.
Yeah.
And I don't want to, that's not an option because I can't be alone. So I just have to lie to myself.
Yeah.
And convince myself that it'll get better, or that what other people seeing, other people, my safe people are seeing isn't real. It's not true. They just don't know her or know him. And we're justifying and rationalizing and lying to ourselves because we just don't want to face the reality and accept the reality that is. Yeah. So being honest with yourself is the first step. And what is your truth? If you're honest with yourself, what do you really want and not want? How do you really feel? What do you really need? Ask for what you need. Say no to what you don't want. And start being honest with yourself so that you can then be honest with the people that you're dating and not misleading them. And then 10 years from now, I was this way before we got married.
Exactly.
Right.
And like I talk a lot about, people who are real close to me know, like I think about time constantly, for a few reasons. You might could tear it apart as some some trauma stuff or something, but to me, time is very important. Whether it's a minute, an hour, a day, a week, a month, a year. None of us know how much longer we have. Mm-hmm. And so I'm very big on just don't waste my time. Mm-hmm. And I'm not going to waste yours. And, for me, I think about if I waste 3 months trying to figure out the truth behind somebody because I won't ask the tough questions and I won't answer them also truthfully, that's 3 months. It's
Wasted.
A long time,
Mm-hmm.
and like I think about that. So that I've been on 1 or 2 dates with somebody, and then one of those main things that is like my absolute no comes out, and I'm like, okay, you're awesome. You're beautiful. All these great things about you, but like, no, like this can't happen.
This is a non-negotiable for me.
I'm done.
So be honest with that and back out of the pool.
Yeah.
And stop leading people on.
Exactly.
Like, stop leading each other on. And it's something that you can do even before. I mean, you don't have to be divorced.
Yeah.
But my kids are 17 and 19, college, and one's getting ready to start sophomore year in college. The other one's getting ready to finish her senior year. But their dating experience, that's what, as a parent, we really need to do is help them discover who they are while they're dating. Yes. As teenagers and adolescents, so that they don't get into this and jump into a marriage not knowing what love is, not knowing who they are and what they want, what they don't want, and then figuring that out after a divorce. Our job as parents is to help them figure out who they are and what they want and what their boundaries are and their non-negotiables are before they settle down. Yeah. And every relationship that my kids have, we've debriefed it.
I was about to ask you, because obviously I'm not at that point. Mine are 6 and 2. I have nieces that are at the dating age. I have friends who their kids are at the dating age. And as you're talking, I was wondering, that was my first thing I was going to ask you is, do you talk with them after that relationship ends or while it's going on about, I think in my head, I would be asking, hey, what do you really like about this person? What do you not like? And make it okay to say what you don't like.
Absolutely.
And start formulating that, because to me, if people would do that more through those early years of starting to date, I think you wouldn't have as many people in their late 20s not married yet still saying, oh, I'm trying to date around and figure out what I want.
Right. It's a little late now.
I've learned at this point in my life, now with my experiences and my time in therapy and then talking to you a little bit, people who say, "Oh, I'm dating around to try to figure out what I want." No, you don't. You don't know yourself.
Yeah.
Is what you're saying.
Right.
So you're hooking up with all these people, which are
Yeah.
most of the time pretty much the same person and repeat,
Yeah.
and you haven't learned what you need.
Yeah. And it's better late than never. You know, if you didn't have parents or safe people in your life, and because whether you're an adult and you have safe people that are kind of helping you see what you
Mhm.
don't see, or whether you're a teenager dating and you have parents or grandparents or uncles or church family or whoever helping you navigate, somebody has to help you navigate relationships to help you discover who you are. And as
Yes.
a parent, that really is our job. But how do you help your children do that if you haven't done it yourself? If you haven't figured out how to evaluate, okay, what worked for me in that relationship? What did I like about it? What did I not like about it? What do I want are my non-negotiables going forward? What have I learned from it? And if you're not able to do that self debrief, yourself, then how do you help your kids do it? So it's really important that you figure out who you are, not only so that you can have a healthy next relationship, but if you're a parent, so you can help your children learn how to have healthy relationship. And that starts with friendships. Before they even start dating,
Yes.
your kids have friendships, and that's when you start helping your kids recognize who is a safe friend. What does it look like to be a good friend? Okay, this friend is, you were honest with your friend that you didn't want to do this, and they guilt tripped you. They shamed you. They got angry. They ghosted you and punished you. They triangulated you and talked about you behind your back. That's not a safe person. That's not a
Mhm.
safe friend. So teaching them what a safe friend looks like and helping them become a safe friend is kind of a precursor to dating, because
Yep.
it's kind of the same thing, really, in navigating what does a healthy relationship look like. But it's so important to help your kids navigate relationships and help them self-discover who they are and what they like and what they don't like in not just friendships, but then ultimately relationships. And we're all different. What worked for my son or what my son was looking for was completely different than what my daughter's discovered that she's looking for, because
Yeah.
they're completely different people. But it's important to help them look at their relationships and why they failed. And okay, so you kind of saw that, but you settled or you ignored it. Why do you think that was?
Well, the next thing that comes to my mind, well, a couple things. Earlier, we were talking about, you know, codependency versus what I think about a lot and see is, obviously I am spiritual, have my relationship with God, know what the Bible says about wanting a helpmate. God created us to have marriage, to have relationship. Um, you know, with that being said, I think some people kind of use that to run into relationships. Like, oh, I have to have somebody. Sometimes I've heard people justify that in a little bit of a way. Like, how do you know that difference between like codependency versus, we are made for relationship? I guess
Yeah,
I'm not doing the best of probably formulating this question, but
right.
codependency being a negative, understanding that we are meant for relationship with the
Mhm.
opposite sex.
Yeah.
And there's beauty and there's strength in having that relationship in a healthy manner.
Hmm.
That whole, I'm vulnerable, here are my needs, are you capable of meeting
Right.
those? Just kind of want to talk about that a little bit,
Yeah. We weren't
that
created
line.
to be independent and alone. And I mean, if we didn't need one another, then we would be God,
Yeah.
right? He created us to have needs, because ultimately he wants us to need him,
Yep.
right? But in a marriage is the picture of our relationship with him.
Yep.
But it's for with each other, it's reciprocal and mutual. With God, it's one directional. We need, he satisfies our needs,
Yeah.
and he will never abuse that. But he doesn't need us. But in a relationship with each other, it's mutual and reciprocal. We have needs.
Yeah.
But we also, because I'm not God, I'm going to fail you.
Yep.
And because you're not God, there are going to be times when you fail me, and maybe you hurt me, or maybe you don't meet my needs, or maybe I hurt you or don't meet your needs. And we have to own that and hold each other accountable, and forgive one another. Whereas with God, it's one directional. He's never going to hurt us, and he's always going to meet our needs. We hurt him every day.
Exactly.
Right? So it's one directional with God, but we are a picture of that relationship of needing and fulfilling needs.
Yeah.
Men's needs and women's needs are typically different.
Mm-hmm.
Women have a much greater need for emotional connection. Guys, men typically are their design, they have this great need for physical connection.
Mm-hmm.
We have to get that in the right order. We have to get that in the right order. The physical desire and attraction is what creates the pursuit. That's why guys typically pursue women, right?
Okay.
It's usually in that direction because it's the physical attraction that men have, or there's just not that women don't have it, but it's much stronger for a man. But that is what creates the pursuit. And then the woman, knowing that she has emotional needs, and that she needs love and sacrifice and commitment and attention and affection, and she needs her emotional needs met. She doesn't give this. I'm not going to give you satisfy your physical need until trust is earned. Yeah. Until I trust that you will sacrifice for me and that you will be vulnerable emotionally and share your heart with me, because that makes me feel connected. That makes me feel one with you, is when I know your fears and your needs. So I need the emotional connection and the trust. When that is well established, the physical connection just comes naturally. But what we often do is try to rush it. We're just going to have the physical connection and assume that the emotional connection and the love and the trust and commitment will just come. Yeah, it's probably not going to.
Yeah.
Unless you're both. I mean, it's possible. I'm not going to say it's not possible. It's certainly possible. But that physical attraction that we initially feel is not love. It's either lust or infatuation.
Okay.
And infatuation, we can both feel that. And there's a possibility that it would grow into a deep, meaningful, genuine love built on trust and commitment. It's possible. But if one or both of us, and often it's the guy, especially in younger relationships, because you're kind of talking about how, your girls are like, I'm not going to waste my time. I want a family. Well, most 18, 19, 20, 21-year-old boys aren't thinking that. They're thinking from their physical need, right? So what they're feeling is lust. What she's feeling is infatuation.
Okay.
So when you have someone who is feeling infatuation and confusing that with love, and you combine that with somebody who is just feeling lust and will say, I love you in order to get my lust needs met, that ain't going to work.
Yeah.
That's going to end badly. But that's what we see, and even in adult relationships.
Yeah, I might have been down some of those roads in my early 20s.
You think?
I think we all did.
Yeah, my daughter is 17, and I kept trying to help her see that these boys that she's dating, they're not thinking like she is, and they're gonna say I love you, and she just could not believe that they had a physical desire that was stronger, that was stronger than hers. But we're just wired differently. But we have to put the time and effort into creating an emotional connection built on trust and commitment and healthy love before trying to create it with physical connection. Yeah. Just doesn't, it's cart before the horse.
Everything we're talking about just is perfectly leading into all these questions. How do you know the difference between infatuation and love? Genuine feelings.
Yeah.
Yeah,
which we just talked about.
Yeah,
infatuation is just it's an attraction. It's deep. It's a physical attraction.
But until you start having those, practically, I guess, so that some people hear it is, if you're not having those deep conversations, if you're not having those uncomfortable conversations, being vulnerable is uncomfortable.
Yeah, it's risky.
Yeah, if anybody says it's not, you're crazy. So for me, I know, like, when I take that step to have a uncomfortable conversation with somebody, I'm putting a lot of trust into that person, a lot. And so for me, that's kind of one of my gauges is what am I willing to talk to this person about? Because there's depths of that vulnerability, and if I get down to that true vulnerable state, I have a lot of trust in that person, and I think that's something to pay attention to. Is obviously for me, I know, and I think for most people, I mean, one of the first things you're gonna feel is attraction, physical attraction,
Yep.
whether that's online, you see pictures of somebody, or in person. I mean, you obviously have to have that first physical attraction.
Right. That just starts the process.
Yeah. And then it's like you talked about the pool analogy. And it is very easy to get caught up in the physical gratification, the lust, the all of that. But, for me, my gauge is what kind of conversations are you having?
Right. Right. How vulnerable is this person? And if I'm gonna share $2 worth of vulnerability with you, and I'm gonna see what you do with that.
Yeah.
If you give me $2 of vulnerability back, I'll give you $5 worth of vulnerability, and then see what you do with that. If you don't give me anything in return, I might give you a few more dollars of vulnerability, and if you still don't up your ante, I'm out. I'm gonna get out of the pool. But what we do is we think we'll change them. I'm just gonna keep giving and keep giving and keep giving and keep being vulnerable and keep being vulnerable. And eventually, this person's gonna fall in love with me.
Yeah.
That's codependency.
Yeah.
You're trying to make someone change, and it doesn't work. It has to be a mutual bid and respond, gradually upping your vulnerability risk, but it has to be mutual and reciprocal. If only one person is doing all the vulnerability work, then it's not going to work.
Yeah. And I think people get caught up too. This is just my own opinion, judging. Trying to make things work. There's sometimes I've been in some situations where literally no reason particularly. I mean, beautiful girl, sweet girl, a lot of great things, but I just didn't feel that thing that you want to feel. And for me, what I see happening, some people who are just wanting to get in a relationship so bad, it's like, walking away from something like that can be really hard for them.
Yeah.
But that's not something I want to wait and see if it changes 3 months from now, 6 months from now, a year from now. That's time wasted possibly. And I just think it's funny, we live in this culture of hookup culture with all the social media and all that. But then there's also like this taboo of dating around too much. Almost, people be like, "Oh, you're dating too much." Well, no, I'm meeting people, finding out that they don't have what I want, and how am I ever going to find somebody if I don't? I've joked. I joked with a buddy of mine one day, and I told him, I was like, I guess to keep from having to date around, I could just make this questionnaire, and here's all the questions you got to answer. Okay, this girl's really pretty. Here, answer this questionnaire, and I'll know if I'd want to marry you or not. That wouldn't work, I might as well get a mail order bride from overseas type of thing. You have to date.
Yes.
You have to take that first small step of vulnerability to ever find somebody.
Yeah.
If your idea is, oh, I've dated too much, so I got to make this work.
I was going to mention that earlier. A lot of people won't end a relationship. They try to force it to work because they don't think that Mr. Right or Mrs. Right is out there.
Yeah.
So if this is but it's a good person.
Yep.
Yeah, but it's not the right person.
Yeah.
But it's hard for them to accept that the right person might be out there. And they are. There's billions of people out there.
Yeah.
The right one is out there, but you're never going to find the right one if you're trying to make the wrong one work.
Yep.
So that's a kind of goes back to your own worldview, and your own fear, your own shame or whatever it is. That's an internal issue, but that you might not be ready to date if you think that you have to settle because the right one might not be out there.
Yeah.
Then you might not be ready to date at all.
Yeah.
Until you decide what you want, what you don't want, what you're looking for, and you're ready to walk away when you realize it's not what you're looking for. Because if you're not really ready to walk away from a relationship, you're not ready to get into one.
That's a great comment right there.
you're not ready to get into one if you're not willing and ready to walk away from it.
Yep.
So it's important to be ready to know what you're looking for and be ready to walk away. And I think it's great that you're right that you're not going to waste time misleading someone or trying to force it to work. And if it's not right, it's not right. Move on.
Yeah.
And that's okay. And there's nothing wrong with, there's no such thing as dating around too much. Sleeping around too much? Yeah.
Yeah.
But we assume that if you're dating someone, you're sleeping together.
Yeah.
Well, if you've dated them, you know, if you're sleeping together and you've had one date, then yeah, you're probably dating around too much if that's what dating is to you.
Yeah.
If dating is sex, then that's a valid point. You're dating around too much.
Yeah.
But dating should not be sex. That's not what dating is. Dating is trying to find the right person for you.
That makes sense.
And then sex is the natural, it's a natural, logical consummation of deep emotional, genuine love that has been tested and has been developed. Trust-based love that's been developed over time.
Great. Kind of getting to the end here, but I have one other thing I definitely wanted to cover because I thought this was really good. How and where do you look for a partner? Now we live in this world of all the online dating. There are so many websites for online dating. There's Facebook dating. I'll admit I have looked into it. It's a freaking cluster. It's a nightmare.
Yeah.
But then, where do you go? How do you meet people? What do you do?
Right.
And I had somebody tell me the other day something that it was some great advice that they were giving some other girls that are single right now. And she said she had told them to just, one, determine what you want. What are your interests? And then go to that place. So
oh my gosh, that's what I was going to say.
if you're heavily involved in church and that's your number one priority, probably want to meet somebody at church. Does not guarantee you're going to meet a great Christian man, but at least you're in the right place.
Your chances are better.
If your number one interest and hobby is fitness, join a running club, join a gym, get to where,
Yep.
CrossFit gyms where you have a lot of community, stuff like that, or art or whatever it is, be there.
Right.
Online dating, I think, is the biggest crock of junk.
It's possible. It's just going to be hard. It's like finding a needle in a haystack because you're not narrowing the pool to people who have common interests, who have common, that are compatible with you based on your own values and interests. My son went away to college and, he went to Florida State, as 7 hours away, and he was terrified and he's worried about, where's he going to find his people? Because he worked really hard to find his people here, and he had his people. Yeah. And they had a small, tight-knit group of guys that were he developed a life group with just these 5 guys, or however many they are. It kind of grew. But these were his people, and he was worried that he's not going to find, who are my people? And I said, honey, you know who you are. You know what your interests are. And that's the key, is you have to know who you are. What does interest you? Are you really into fitness, or are you just going to the gym hoping to find somebody?
Yeah.
Are you really a spiritual person, or are you just going to church hoping? Who are you?
Yep.
What are your interests? And that goes back to knowing who you are. And if you don't know who you are, don't try to get into a relationship, because you're going to let somebody else define who you are, and then one day wake up and realize this isn't who I am. So who are you? What are you interested in? Do those things. And find your friend group in the things that interest you, and in discovering who you are in your friend group. And then you will naturally find someone that fits you. My son went away to college, and that's what was my encouragement to him, is you're looking for a life group, for a Christian group of guys. Find some like groups there. He's interested in, he was in the band in high school, and he was going to try out for the band. I'm like, well, then do that if that's what you want to do, and that's where you'll find people who are like you. And he ended up finding a girl who was in the band who was a Christian.
Yeah.
I'm like, she's the one. And she likes, they both like Legos, and they both are kind of, he calls himself a nerd, but he likes, proud of being a nerd. So I want to find my nerd. And I'm like, well,
there you go.
So know who you are, Do the things that interest you. Go to the places that interest you, that genuinely, not because you are wanting to find someone who's interested in that, but because you're interested in that.
Yeah.
It's really who you are. And stop trying so hard to fit a square peg into a round hole.
Yeah.
And just be you. Do what interests you. Go to the places that interest you. Socialize with find the friend group that is like you. And the relationship will happen organically when you stop trying so hard.
Yeah. I like that. And I'll also add, don't try to change other people. I see that a lot. You know, people will, I think you kind of hit on it a while ago. It's like, you know, if you say out of 10 things, oh, they got 6 things I really like, but these 4, I'm going to change this about them.
Right.
That's not being fair to them, are you?
Right. You can't. That's why you have to know yourself, and you do the things that interest you. Go to the places that you're interested in. Be honest about who you are. If you try to put a camouflage and try to be something that you're not, it's going to attract somebody that likes the false you.
Yeah.
It's going to attract somebody who likes who you're pretending to be. You can't keep that pretend up forever. Eventually, your true self is going to come out, and it's going to be, well, who are you? You weren't like this when I married you. Well, somebody changed the rules.
Yeah.
Somebody changed who they were. It's like the guy that went into sobriety and stopped partying and decided he wanted something. Well, that's fine, but she didn't change with you.
Yep.
You're gonna. I mean, in life, you're gonna have to change. Everybody's gonna have to change, but if you aren't honest about who you are, the variance between where you are now and what change looks like is so wide. Expecting somebody to change that much is going to be pretty high expectation. So change is going to have to happen like this. If you're honest about who you are in the beginning, then when life happens and we have to change and adapt and sacrifice, it's going to be more like this versus like this. You know, you're all over the map trying to change each other and trying to change yourself, and you can't stick because it's really not who I am. It's way too different. So be honest with yourself about who you are. Be honest with other people about who you are. Don't go into a gym pretending to be an athlete if you're not. And then when you attract an athlete and they start realizing that you're not, you're trying to change each other into an athlete or not an athlete.
Or you get mad because they got to go to the gym 2
you're
hours
working
a
out
day.
too much.
Yeah.
How come you're working out so much? Well, I thought you did. Well, you need to start working out. Well, you need to stop working out. Well, if you were just honest with yourself and didn't go to a gym thinking that you're you're going to attract somebody who is. So be honest with yourself, and then be honest with each other, and then the changes that you both have to make won't be as extreme.
Yeah.
You'll both have to change and adapt and sacrifice, but it won't be so extreme if you're both honest with yourself and with each other about who you are.
Yeah. Well, we're coming up on the end here, so the last thing I want to leave everybody with on the topic of dating, that from just personal experience, and we've hit on it a bunch today, is if you want to find that person, if you want to speed up that process of knowing and not knowing and quit wasting time, the thing I've learned that I do, and my advice would be, the quicker you share vulnerability and the bigger vulnerability you share is going to answer that question, whether or not you're compatible with that person long term or not. And so that's why with me, I have some pretty big conversations very quickly. And then, like you said, though, the important part of that is once you have that conversation, be willing to hold that line.
Right.
Know what you want that answer to be, and when it's not what you want it to be willing to say, hey, this has been enjoyable, but we're different on this page. I'm going to walk away.
Right.
And so that's kind of my biggest thing that I've learned and that I would want to put out there to people is you can quit wasting time. It's going to require you to know what you want and who you are, and then to be vulnerable more quickly.
Right, but emotionally vulnerable, not
Yes.
physically vulnerable.
Yes.
If you think that physical vulnerability is going to somehow connect you emotionally, it won't.
Yes.
It won't.
100%.
So emotional vulnerability, and then be honest about your limits. This is what I do want, and I'm going to be vulnerable, and I expect it back, and I'm really hoping that you can match that. But also your limits and what you're not going to live with, and then be willing to walk away because we all say, oh yeah, I'm not like that either, but then we do it.
Yeah.
So confront it. You said this was your value. You said you didn't, this was a boundary for you too, but this is what I saw. You know what? I didn't even realize that. You're right. I'm going to work on that. Or, Well, too bad this is who I am. Okay, good. I'm glad you were honest with me. Bye.
Yeah. Well, everyone, thank y'all for following us today. Just to give y'all a heads up, the next time that Jackie's with us, we will be talking about the do's and don'ts of a healthy marriage. And so what we're going to focus on there is, in the confines of marriage, the do's and the don'ts, how to maintain a healthy relationship, what communication looks like, what dating when you're married looks like, just a lot of things like that around how to maintain a healthy marriage, and some of the pitfalls, some of the common pitfalls that you need to be on guard for, because as I've talked about in some other videos, if you are in a marriage, you have to actively protect that marriage. You have to actively pursue that marriage. So in the time between now and then, if you have some questions, if you have some thoughts of what y'all would like to hear discussed on that topic, please send me a message, comment, and like always, do me a favor and subscribe, share, follow us on TikTok, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram. And we look forward to getting back with y'all in a couple of weeks. I think it's 2 weeks from now that Jackie will be back with us. Or it may be next week. We're looking right now.
No, next week.
Next week.
Next week, and
All
the week
right.
after that we'll be out. But
So we will be back next week. So
I think, is that right? Hold on.
yeah. Yep, next week. All right, guys, girls, thank y'all so much. Hope y'all have a wonderful week. Miss Jackie, thank you for being here,
My pleasure.
taking
Thanks for
time
having
out of
me.
your day. All right, y'all have a good one.